Okay, we'll go ahead and call the 2019 City of Eau Claire Board of Review to order.
Anderson, Beaton, Benjamin, Berge,
Here.
Christofferson,
Here.
Emmanuel, Gregert, Klinkhammer,
Here.
Lohr,
Yeah.
Weld,
Here.
Worthman,
Here.
Peters,
Here.
Winzenz,
Here.
and Riepel here.
Okay, I'll now take a moment for the election of the board chair and vice chair. Do we have any nominations for either of these positions?
I nominate Jay Winzenz as chair.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries for board chair. Any nominations for vice chair?
Nominate Dale Peters as vice chair.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Winzenz, you said you were gonna go through some of the
Yeah,
board responsibilities.
and then I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Hofer. I left at each member's desk a document titled Board of Review, the Basics. And this goes over the responsibilities of the Board of Review, and also some of the methods of evaluation and the hierarchy for rules of best evidence and what they're referring to as the golden rules. But just real quickly, those golden rules that we all need to keep in mind when we're hearing these cases. First of all, is that the assessor's valuation of property is presumed correct and is binding on the Board of Review in the absence of evidence showing it to be incorrect. So you'll hear at the beginning of every case today me indicate to the objector that that they have the burden of proof in showing that the assessor's value determination of value is not correct. The board cannot change any value fixed by the assessor except upon evidence presented to it by persons under oath that substantiates a specific change in value. So, if just because somebody's a good guy or they're your friend, you can't change their valuation based upon that information. There has to be information presented at the hearing under oath that that would cause such a change in value. And the evidence must be factual in nature, not just a matter of opinion. So, there must be some sort of documentation or something else supporting the objector's opinion, as there needs to be with the city assessor as well. So those are kind of the golden rules. On the last page of that document are the rules of best evidence for cases in Wisconsin. And the best evidence for determination of value of a property is a sale of the subject property. So if a property sold, that's going to be the best indication of value, as long as that's what's called an arm's length transaction. There are some transactions that might occur between partners in a corporation or between family members that may not be an arm's length transaction. But as long as it is, that's the best determinant of the value of a property. Absent a sale of the subject property, the next best determinant are reasonably comparable sales, and those would be sales of properties that are similar and also be arm's length transaction, and also there need to be appropriate adjustments made to the values of those properties to get them to a point where they really are similar. For example, one property might have a finished basement and another property doesn't. You have to adjust out the value of that finished basement in order for those to be comparable properties. And absent those two determinants of value, there are other sources of data that collectively can be used to determine value, and those are listed on that sheet. So as we go through the determinations on each one of these cases, we'll be referring back to that and talking about whether or not there was a sale of the subject property, whether or not there were reasonably comparable sales, and then going through some of those other determinants of value if neither of those two pieces exist. So as I said, the sheet on the basics also goes through the responsibilities of the Board of Review. Just a reminder that the Board of Review is a quasi-judicial body. We sit here to, basically as judges, to hear evidence and hear testimony. And that testimony is given to us under oath by the city assessor as well as the objector. Board members are to refrain from ex parte contacts or contacts with either the city assessor or the objectors outside of the context of this room. The board does not independently set value. The board does not do over the work of the city assessor and cannot substitute their judgment or idea of value for the assessor's opinion. Very important to keep that in mind, is that the assessor's opinion of value is presumed to be correct. The board shall correct all errors in descriptions and computations if there are any. The board may subpoena witnesses if necessary. We make decisions based upon evidence presented by persons under oath. The board is not an assessing body. The board's function is not evaluation. And as I said previously, the board is bound to accept the assessor's assessment as correct unless there's competent sworn testimony not contradicted by other evidence that proves the assessment to be incorrect. So just wanted to run through those with board members. This is something that you all, or we all, only do once a year. So I just wanted to run through those particular items. Are there other items that you want to add to that, City Attorney?
No, I think that's pretty well said, Mr. Winzen. Certainly if there are any follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, now we'll move on to confirmations of training. City Clerk?
Myself, City Clerk, attended training on May 24th, 2018, and our Finance Director, Jay Winzen, attended training on June 2nd, 2019.
That's how I spent my weekend. That was fun. Okay, thank you very much. And now we're going to review a couple of adopted policies. These were also placed at your seats. One of those has to do with policy regarding request to allow telephone and written testimony. So just a reminder that we do have a Board of Review policy statement on that, and that the Board of Review shall allow sworn telephone testimony for all ill or disabled persons who present to the Board of Review a letter from a physician, osteopath, and physician assistant as defined in Wisconsin Statute 448.01, sub 6, or advanced practice nurse prescriber certified under Wisconsin Statutes 441.16, sub 2, that confirms their illness or disability. So there is an opportunity for objectors to present testimony via telephone if the individual who is presenting that testimony meets one of those exceptions. So just a reminder that we do have that policy. And then on the back side of that sheet of paper is a policy statement on waiver of Board of Review hearings. I believe that there are a number of parties this morning that have requested a waiver of the Board of Review hearing, which essentially allows them to take their appeal or their objection straight to circuit court rather than going through a full hearing here at the Board of Review. It has been the board's policy not to waive the hearing of objection before the Board of Review. However, because, essentially we feel that the local board is in the best position to hear appeals regarding the assessment of fair market value of local real property. However, in the last year or so, I will say that the board has made a practice of waiving many of the commercial cases, particularly the commercial cases where we're litigating prior years' assessments, and not have a hearing at the local board. But we have also been considering waiver requests for cases that currently are not under litigation as well, because historically those cases just end up in circuit court anyway. So that is the board's policy on waiver of board of review hearings. So with that, I will turn it over to the city assessor to present the assessment roll.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony which you shall give in the matter now on hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Good morning.
Good morning.
For any of those I've not met yet, my name is Heidi Ender. I'm the city assessor for the city of Eau Claire. I do have a staff of several assessors. Some of them will be presenting cases before you today as well. So I just want to give you a real brief overview of our assessment year. I'm going to hand out a packet that was created by Commonwealth Development Corporation. They're a local commercial broker who publishes a report annually to discuss the commercial marketplace both in Eau Claire and Altoona, just to give you a feel for what's happening around our community. We conducted a citywide revaluation for the 2018 assessment year, which means we placed all properties at our opinion of market value for the 2018 year. So now for the 2019 assessment year, we've done some maintenance is what we refer to, where there's properties, most of them, their assessments stayed the same. Those that had any physical changes to the property had assessment adjustments to better reflect what they would sell for in today's market. And just sheds, porches, patios, decks, new construction, things like that are most of the value changes we made for the 2019 assessment. The market in Eau Claire is still continuing to be strong. If you've been looking at homes for sale, you'll see that the prices continue to rise. The assessment for this year, just based on new construction, some market adjustments, increased by overall by about 1.7%. And the median home price in Eau Claire continues to rise. Last year, the median home price of sales was about $165,000. This year, it's approximately $170,000. That was based on the Wisconsin Realtors Association data. In this packet that I handed out, I just wanted to draw your attention, referencing the commercial marketplace, to page 3, which is on the back side. So you kind of have to flip it up. And Commonweal, again, is a local broker, reputable broker in the area. And they reference the retail market in Eau Claire and how the vacancy has gone down, even though we've had a few larger stores that have relocated from this area or removed their facility. But even so, and with new construction, the vacancy in Eau Claire has decreased, which is definitely a good sign for our economy in Eau Claire. Whatever you've heard nationally, Eau Claire is a strong market, both commercially and residential. I also want to reference on the last page, page 6. In the bottom of the third paragraph, talking about with the construction and leasing activity, absorption in the retail sector was positive for the first time in 3 years at over 200,000 square feet, reducing the retail vacancy from 2018 at 12.29% to this year at 11.66%. And it was especially in where most of our retail is, in the South Oakwood Hills Mall area. So that's definitely a good indicator of what's happening in the market today. I'll present you the assessment roll. As part of that, we have some corrections to the last year's assessment roll. Most of those were personal property accounts that, after our board review in October, business owners would have come to us and said, oh, I forgot to file my form. We actually, here's the form, here's a correction to it. So we add that as a correction to our assessment roll for this year. And we had one omitted property that was discovered during open book hearings, or after board of review last year, that there was a garage that we had erroneously raised but is still there. So we picked that up as an omitted property for this year. Statutes allow us to do that for 2 years previous. So that's part of what you're accepting in the assessment roll. The rest is that the assessments we've placed, we've mailed the open book notices legally within 15 days of when the board today has met, and we've discussed those assessments with property owners that have called during the open book hearing period. Does anybody have any questions prior to me signing the roll?
Heidi, what was our assessment rate as a percentage of the fair market value for last year versus the current year?
Our estimated assessment ratio, which is the sales to the assessments, or actually vice versa, assessments to sales, is about 96%. That was estimated. What I'm doing now is signing the assessor's affidavit certifying that this is accurate to the best of my belief for both Eau Claire and Chippewa County. All right, and the board can determine, we have a few appeals. I'm not sure if you want to vote on what order you'd like to hear them in.
Yeah. Sure, we'll run through the, I believe we have a number of commercial cases that have filed waiver requests. Why don't we just start out with those and I guess go in order of either whenever they were, I'm not sure what order you have them there, city clerk, but when they were submitted or alphabetically, however you have it there.
I've got them arranged by the company that turned in the appeals.
Okay.
So the first one I have is Eau Claire East Motel.
Okay, so Eau Claire East Motel, is this, why don't you go ahead and introduce that particular case?
Okay. It's Eau Claire East Motel. The parcel number is 15-3518-G, and they have requested a waiver of the.
Okay, and what's the address of the property, which particular property?
The address is 3614 Gateway Drive.
Okay, very good. Is this, city attorney, is this one that is currently in litigation?
It is, and we're recommending waiver because it is currently in litigation.
Okay, so we have a waiver request for this particular property. Are there, so we need to act on that waiver request. Are there any questions that board members have of the city attorney related to this matter? Seeing none, looking for a motion regarding the waiver request.
I move we grant the waiver.
I've got a motion, you okay, second, Andrew? Motion and a second to grant the waiver request. City clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Berge,
Aye.
Christopherson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye.
So So that waiver request is granted. Next case, City Clerk.
Okay. The next one is Oakwood Hills Mall. The parcel number is 15-3507-I. The address is 4720 Gulf Road.
And City Attorney, is this one that's currently in
This one
litigation
is
as
also
well?
currently in litigation, and so we're also recommending waiver as a way of conserving judicial resources and the time and resources of the board as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the City Attorney? Looking for a motion?
I move we grant the waiver.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to grant the waiver request of Oakwood Hills Mall. City Clerk?
Christofferson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye. Bergy.
Aye.
And that waiver request is granted.
The next one is Oakwood Anchor Acquisition at 4606 Gulf Road. The parcel number is 15-3507-E.
City Attorney is,
This one is also currently in litigation, and we're recommending waiver for the same reasons we mentioned on prior parcels.
okay, any questions of the City Attorney from the board? Seeing none, looking for a motion?
I
So
move we.
Ooh, we're wrestling for it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the waiver request of Oakwood Anchor Acquisition. City Clerk?
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye. Bergy,
Aye.
Christofferson.
Aye.
And then the next one is Scogan's Food Liner. The parcel number is 15-2347-B. It's located at 3007 Mall Drive.
Mr. Wizenz, this one also currently is in litigation, and we're recommending waiver for the same reasons we mentioned on other parcels.
Thank you. Any questions of the City Attorney? Seeing none, looking for a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the waiver request of Scogan's Food Liner. City Clerk?
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye. Bergy,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
And that waiver request is approved.
Okay, and then we have Scogan's Food Liner. This parcel number is 10-0535, located at 2717 Birch Street.
City Attorney, is this one currently in
This
litigation?
one also is currently in litigation, and for the same reasons we mentioned on prior parcels, we're recommending waiver.
Very good. Any questions of the City Attorney? Seeing none, looking for a motion?
Since we're moving around the room, I'll move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the waiver request of Scogan's Food Liner for parcel 10-0535, 2717 Birch Street. City Clerk?
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye. Bergy,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr.
Aye.
Okay. We then move on to the second batch, and the first one is Menards. The parcel number is 14-1284-G, 3210 North Claremont Avenue.
Mr. Winzenz, this parcel is also currently in litigation for the same reasons we mentioned on prior parcels. We're recommending waiver.
Very good. Any questions of the City Attorney? Seeing none, for a motion?
I'll move to approve. Second.
And a motion and a second to grant the waiver request of Menards for parcel 14-1284-G, 3210 North Claremont. City Clerk?
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye. Bergy,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
And then the next Menards property is parcel number 15-3504-E at 3619 South Hastings Way. And then, do you want to do them both at the same time? It's the same address, but different parcel numbers.
Why don't we do them separately?
Okay.
I think we
All
need to
right.
make a record for each one.
All right.
So, City Attorney, do you have is this one in litigation? Do you have a
This
recommendation?
one is currently in litigation, and so we're recommending waiver for the same reasons we mentioned on prior parcels.
Thank you. Any questions of the City Attorney? Seeing none, looking for a motion.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the waiver request of Menards for parcel number 15-3504-E, 3619 South Hastings Way. City Clerk?
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye. Bergy,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
And that request is approved.
Okay. We then have Menards, this parcel number is 15-350-B, and this property address is also 3619 South Hastings Way.
And Mr. Winzenz, this matter also currently is in litigation, and we're recommending waiver for the same reasons we recommended waiver on prior parcels.
Very good. Questions of the City Attorney? Seeing none, looking for a motion.
A motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the waiver request of Menards for parcel 15-350-B, 3619 South Hastings Way. City Clerk?
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye. Bergy,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters.
Aye.
Not in litigation, but we're recommending waiver.
Okay,
now.
all right. We then have Sam's Club. It's Sam's Real Estate. The parcel number is 15-3519-A. It's located at 4001 Gateway Drive.
Mr. Winzenz, this parcel is not currently in litigation. However, our outside counsel has recommended that we grant waiver as it is closely connected to other parcels such as the Walmart parcel, which are currently in litigation, and we believe from a judicial economy standpoint, it makes sense to waive this one as well, since we'll be probably handling this in concert with another parcel that is in litigation.
Very good. Questions of the City Attorney? Seeing none, looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the waiver request of Sam's Real Estate, parcel 15-3519-A, 4001 Gateway. City Clerk?
Riepel, aye. Bergy,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz.
Aye.
We then have Chippewa Valley Partners, which is Walmart. The parcel number is 15-3519, located at 3915 Gateway Drive.
Mr. Winzenz, my understanding is this matter is currently in litigation for the same reasons we mentioned on the prior parcels, we're recommending waiver of this claim as well.
Very good. Any questions of the city attorney? Seeing none, looking for a motion?
I move. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the waiver request of Chippewa Valley Partners, parcel 15-3519-3915 Gateway Drive. City Clerk?
Bergy,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lore,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye. Okay, and that is the end of our waiver requests.
Okay, very good. So if you submitted a waiver request, those have all been approved. So we'll move on to our next case.
Okay, the next.
Do we have a residential case? Let's take that one first then.
All right, okay, so we have an appeal from William and Terry Tribble. The parcel number is 09-2437. The address is 3342 Vineyard Street. And I have a copy of the objection that was filed.
So I'll just give you a brief introduction of the case, and then we will let the property owner explain to you what their appeal is of the property, and then I will explain to you how the value was determined. This is a single-family home located at 3342 Vineyard Street in Eau Claire, which is on the west side of Eau Claire in a newer subdivision. It sits on an 8,169 square foot lot. The home itself is 1,688 square foot. It was built during the last year. It had a partial assessment for January of 2018 because it was partially complete. And the existing assessment of $32,000 on the land, $201,400 on the improvements for a total assessed value of $233,400 is based on the completed building. It's located at lot 37, Vineyard Prairie 2. It's the legal description.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony which you shall give in the matter now on hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Tribble, thank
Yes.
you very much for appearing here this morning. Just want to go through the hearing procedures with you so you understand, the procedure, the process that we're going to be following. So as you're standing there, you'll have the first opportunity to present your objection, including any testimony and evidence that you would like the board to consider in ruling on this matter. After you've presented any testimony, witnesses, or evidence, the city assessor, as well as the board of review, may have questions of you, and will have an opportunity to answer or ask those questions.
Okay.
After you've testified, the city assessor will be afforded the same opportunity to present any information, evidence, testimony regarding how their value was determined. You will have an opportunity then to ask questions of the city assessor, as will members of the board of review. And then, once that's completed, you'll be given an opportunity to summarize, and the city assessor will be as well. The Board of Review wants you to understand that under state law, the Board of Review is required to uphold the assessor's valuation of your property as being correct unless you, by your testimony, can show the assessor's valuation to be incorrect. In other words, the burden of proof is upon you as a taxpayer. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. So for the record, will you please state your full name and address, and will you also state what, in your opinion, is the fair market value of your property?
My name is Terry Tribble, and my address is 3342 Vineyard Street, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, 54703. At this time, I feel that the value of the property is at 200 and, hold on one second. Let me make sure I state this correctly. $205,000.
Okay, very good. I guess, Ms. Tribble, how did you arrive at that particular opinion of value?
I went into the assessor's website and pulled 2018 values on the properties that are located within close proximity to my property, based on lot valuation, valuation of the structure, the type of structure that's on that property. Our home is a single-story home, has no basement, has a 2-car garage. Most of the homes around me have a basement, a first floor, a second floor, and a 3-car garage. And most of the lots are somewhat larger than ours to extremely larger than our lot. So just based on their 2018 valuations, because obviously I couldn't see 2019's, they weren't on the website yet. There is one home that sits across the street, one property over from us, that is very similar to our home, has no basement, single story. It does have a 3-car garage. The structure value for that one is at, last year was valued at $164,400. Most of the rest of the homes around us, I believe, all of them have at least basement. I'm not sure if they're finished or unfinished. Most of them have 3-car garages. Obviously, their properties are somewhat better, for lack of a better term, than ours. Worth more, I would think, because of basements and extra car garages and larger lots.
Did you happen to bring printouts or anything of the assessor's records concerning those properties that you're
Yes.
Indicating are comparable? Would you like to introduce those as evidence? And if so, please provide them to the
Sure.
city clerk to be marked as exhibits.
Okay. I'm sorry for taking so long. Give me
No,
one
that's okay,
second.
no worries. We've got all day.
Speak for yourself.
And I'm not sure my boss would think that either.
Yeah.
Where it is. My apologies for the delay.
Thank you.
Very good. So those have been preceded as evidence in this particular case. I did notice on your objection form, Ms. Dribble, that it indicates that you purchased the property on April 27th of 2018 at an acquisition price of $235,000. Is that correct?
That is
accurate?
correct. Mhm.
Okay. Just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure.
Now, what was the nature of that transaction? Who did you purchase it from?
R.L. Acker Builders.
Okay.
here in Eau Claire.
It's not a relative or?
No,
this-
no.
This was an arm's length transaction?
It is, yes, it was. Mhm.
And then it looks like further down on that form that there was an appraisal completed in March of 2018, I assume, as part of the loan
The loan
process at
Yes.
$236,000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, very good, very good. Is there other information you would like the board to consider?
Well, there is, and I provided her with a copy of the record for that. There is one home behind our home on a cul-de-sac street that turns off of our street. That their home is, a very large two-story structure with a basement. They have the largest lot in the area, and their home is valued at $194,000, 2018 values. So that was another reason I was concerned with how ours was valued, because ours is much smaller than that. And I understand it's new construction and all that, but I just feel if you base it on adjoining properties, that our home is valued just a little high for the area.
Is there anything else about the transaction that the board should consider? You may have heard Mr. Winzen say at the beginning that, you know, the state law requires them to look first at recent arm's length transactions in determining a fair assessed value. Is there anything else about the transaction they should know so that they should disregard that recent arm's length transaction in favor of some of those comparables?
No, not that I can think of. There weren't any.
There wasn't anything out of the ordinary,
No,
unusual?
no.
that-
It was the
that w-
standard purchase transaction for a home.
Board members have any questions of the objector? Seeing none, city assessor, any questions?
No.
Good. City assessor, would you like to present your testimony, please? You can have a seat over here if you'd like to, Ms. Tribble.
Thought the projection screens would kill a lot of trees here for this board. So again, the property we're discussing is located at 3342 Vineyard Street. It's a ranch home that had construction begun in 2017, was completed during the 2018 year. On January 1st, 2018, the property was approximately 37% complete and was assessed for $108,200. The completed home sold in April of 2018 for $235,000, which was recorded at the Eau Claire County Register of Deeds. As Tribble mentioned, the grantor was R.L. Acker Construction. On January 9th, a representative of the assessor's office viewed the property with the homeowner and measured and listed the property. So we have updated, accurate information of the condition of the property, the quality of construction, the room count, etc. The notes from the representative were that the house has laminate wood flooring throughout except the great room, bedroom, and four-season room. 2 of the bedrooms have carpeting and closet with doors. The second bathroom has a vinyl tile floor, laminate countertop with built-in sink, and a fiberglass tub with a shower unit. The great room is carpeted and has an overhead fan with recessed lighting. The kitchen, dining space, and great room are all open concept. The kitchen has approximately a 3x6 island with laminate countertop and wood cabinetry underneath. There's a laminate countertop throughout the rest of the kitchen with wood cabinetry above and below the countertop level. Cabinets seem to be a little more decorative than the cabinetry seen in other comparable spec homes in the neighborhood. A spec home is one that's built by a contractor and then sold rather than built for a specific purchaser. There are hanging light fixtures over the island with the lights being anchored to a portion of the ceiling with decorative wood paneling. Dining space leads into a carpeted four-season room through 2 wood doors with glass paneling. Master bedroom is carpeted with a large walk-in closet through the master bedroom. Master bath has vinyl tile flooring, a fiberglass shower tub combo, and a laminate countertop with 2 built-in sinks. The homeowner estimated they spent $235,000 for the house and the lot. So, based on the home being complete during the year, the assessed value for 2019 was established at $233,400. At the beginning of our board proceedings, Chairperson Winsens had described to you that both case law and the Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual requires assessors to value the property on a 3-tier process. Tier 1 is if there is a recent arm's length transaction of the subject property, that is the best evidence of value. If there is no recent arm's length transaction of the property, we look at comparable sales we try to find them as a close in vicinity as possible. And absent that, we look to income approach, things like that. Because this property had a recent arm's length transaction, that was the predominant factor in valuing the property. But in order to confirm that that value seemed appropriate, we do a comparable analysis, which was the package you received. So the first page is the subject property. It's a picture of it there. This one is assessed at $139 per square foot, which was that determination based on the recent sale of that property. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, a 4-season room, and a 2-car garage. The second page shows you a floor plan of the house. The gray area is the first floor area. There's an open frame porch on the front, and then a large 2-car garage, 26 wide, which a standard 2-car is a 24 square garage. The next page, we get into our comparables. Comparable 1 is located at 1948 Tucker Trail. This was built in 2018. It is 1,580 square feet. It sold March of 2019 for $272,500, which equates to $172.47 per square foot. This is a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath. It does have a basement family room and a 3-car garage. The next page is comparable number 2. This is located at 1945 Tate Avenue. It was built in 2018. It has 1,398 square feet. Sold September 20th of 2018 for $249,000, which equates to $178.11 per square feet. This is a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath home with a patio and a 2-car garage. Next page is comparable number 3, located at 3403 Vineyard Street, built in 2018. This has 1,620 square feet, sold May 22nd of 2018 for $284,900, which equates to $175.86 per square feet. This is a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath home, has a fireplace, a patio, and a 3-car garage. Next page is comparable number 4, located at 1980 Tucker Trail. This home was built in 2018. It is 1,388 square feet. It sold May 20th of 2019 for $256,500, which equates to $184.80 per square feet. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a fireplace, partial basement finish, front porch, and a 3-car garage. Comparable number 5 is located at 3442 Creek Ridge Drive. It was built in 2018. It is 1,534 square feet. Sold July 2nd of 2018 for $266,500, which equates to $173.73 per square feet. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a patio and a 3-car garage. The next page, you'll see a map showing the subject property, which is outlined in red, where that is located on the west side of Eau Claire. And where those comparable properties are located, you can see all of them are within a 3-block area. So they're very indicative of the market and expected sale price of other properties in that neighborhood. And then the final page in that packet is a list of the improved properties in the 2 to 3 block radius of the subject property. The first one on that list that's highlighted in gold is the subject property built in 2018 with 1,688 square feet. The sale price and then the assessment per square foot is at $138 a square foot. The top 10 or so parcels are those that are either a bi-level 2-story or a split level, which would not be a good comparison per square foot of a ranch home. So they were not considered in the valuing or the justification of the assessed value. And then you can see on the bottom, all of those are single-family, they are single-family, but 1-story properties. And you can see that the range of assessment per square foot is between $152 and $205 per square foot. The mean assessment is $174.30. The median is $173.09. Those parcels that are highlighted in a light gray are the comparison parcels that Ms. Tribble had referenced. The one on the top, 9-2406, is a 2-story home. The footprint of the house, I believe, is just over 800 square feet. And it's much less expensive to build a 2-story home. You have less foundation, less construction costs, and they sell for less per square foot than a ranch home would. The second highlighted gray is 9-2404. This is a property also on a slab, similar to Ms. Tribble's. That one is currently assessed at $152 a square foot. And the last property highlighted in gray, 9-2436, is again a ranch home that sold, but it is assessed at $174 a square foot, significantly more than this one. That was the same builder actually as their property, but this one has basement under it, so it would sell for more per square foot. So again, just want to summarize, based on state court cases, Markarian versus City of Cudahy, we are required to value first based on recent sale of the subject property. If absent that, we compare it to other properties that have sold that are similar. And even in looking at other properties that have sold, I feel that the assessed value per square foot and the total assessment overall is well in line with a reasonable assessed value. Any questions?
Board members have questions of the city assessor? I have one. In your professional opinion, what would be the difference, I guess, per square foot in value of a home on slab versus a home with a standard basement?
Well, I think just the analysis here in looking at it, it was roughly $30,000 for a basement. So if this property had a basement, it's a significant sized home, 1,688 square feet. And of the comparables, if we had looked at, like a 1,580 square foot for $272,500. There was a recent one. Oh, so the comp 3 was 1,620 square feet, still a little bit smaller. Had a 3-car garage, but that one sold for $284,900. So you can get a good judgment from those sales.
Do board members have any further questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering how does the laws define recent as in the recent sale? Is there usually a...
Well, because we conducted a revaluation for 2018, we looked to the January 1, 2018 market value. So recent, I guess there's no definition. We typically use for a revaluation 2 years
Okay.
depending on what's happening in the marketplace, because the market is continuing to increase right now. We have, we've seen probably roughly a 3% increase in the last year. This was a April of 18 sale, so we would adjust it to the first of the year, which is why it wasn't at 235 for the assessed value.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, Ms. Tribble, do you have any questions of the city assessor?
No.
Okay, very good. Would you like to add anything to the record regarding this particular case?
No, thanks.
Okay, very good. City assessor, would you like to add anything? Very good, then we will close testimony in this particular case, and the board will deliberate on this particular appeal. Mr. Peters?
I'll bring forward a motion, actually. We can talk about it if anybody needs to, or wants to. Concerning 3342 Vineyard Street, parcel 092437, I would move that we uphold the assessment of $233,400. I believe that's supported by the Tier 1 criteria, which was an arm's length sale of $235,000 on April 27th of 2018. I would, I guess, offer that it's also supported by the comparable data that was presented by the city assessor, and that assessment would also be supported by the appraisal of $236,000 that was done on the property on March 26th of 2008. Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to uphold the city assessor's value of $233,400. Any discussion on that motion? I will be voting in favor of that motion. I think Mr. Peters stated it very well, that as I indicated at the beginning of the meeting, that we are required to uphold the value of the city assessor unless evidence is presented that compels us to do otherwise. I think that the sale of the subject property is the best indicator of value. And in this case, that particular sale supports the value of the city assessor, and I'll be supporting the motion. Any other discussion? Seeing none, city clerk?
Christofferson,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye. Berge,
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Tribble. Appreciate you coming here today. And welcome to Eau Claire.
Thank you.
I detected an accent, so I assume
Yes.
you're new to the area.
Definitely not from the north. Okay, great. Okay, all right, great. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And the last one that we have is for Oakwood Hills Mall, Shields. And the parcel's number is 15-3507-C. The address is 4710 Gulf Road.
Okay, is the representative for Shields here? Yes. Do you want to go through, you didn't apply for a waiver? Do you want to go through the full hearing before the board?
Yep.
Okay, very good. We shall do so then. Please stand and be sworn in by the city clerk.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony which you shall give in the matter now
now on hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did.
Okay, will you please state your name and address for the record?
Do you want the property address or my work?
Both for us, please.
All right. My name's Daniel Willard. I'm with Ducharme McMillan Associates. My address is 9229 Delegates Row, Indianapolis, Indiana, and we represent the Shield store at 4710 Gulf Road.
Very good. I'm going to quickly run through the hearing procedures as I did for the last objector, just to make sure we're all on the same page. You'll be given an opportunity to present evidence first and testimony on your opinion of value. After you've had an opportunity to testify, the board may ask questions of you. The city assessor will be afforded the same opportunity. Following that, the city assessor will be given the opportunity to present their evidence and testimony on this particular case. And the board, as well as yourself, will have an opportunity to ask questions of the city assessor. Each of you will be given an opportunity then to summarize your case, and then the board will deliberate. The Board of Review wants you to understand that under state law, the Board of Review is required to uphold the assessor's valuation of your property as being correct unless you, by your testimony, can show the assessor's valuation to be incorrect. In other words, the burden of proof is on you as the taxpayer. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. For the record, you already stated your name and address, but what is your opinion of the value of the property?
Our opinion of the value of the property is $5.5 million.
Okay, please proceed with your testimony.
Okay. I have copies of an appraisal we had completed. I only have 4 copies of that. I have a fifth one I can leave behind as well.
Okay, very good.
So the property is roughly 107,000 square feet with the original year construction of 1986, part of the Oakwood Hills Mall. It is occupied by Shields. It does have a roughly 20,000 square foot basement area that was added in 2002 after Shields took occupancy in 2001. There was also a mezzanine of roughly 11,000 square feet. Those 2 square footages are not included in the gross building area, as the appraiser concluded the market does not recognize those as part of, if the property was on the open market, it would not be recognized as the overall square footage of the building. He completed both the cost approach, the sales approach to value, and the income approach. The cost approach is based on land values in the area, plus the construction cost to construct the building new, less any depreciation, which includes physical depreciation or economic obsolescence attributed to the property. He does have a very detailed discussion on pages 13 and 14 of the local market of big box retailers in the area. I like to point out the former Yonkers sold for $2 million in January of this year. And then I believe it was in 16 or 17, the Macy's sold for $1 million. However, that was an allocated value, so it was disregarded as an arm's length transaction. So he goes into his in the detailed construction costs on page. I'm sorry. So he discusses the land value on pages 26 and 27. Concludes an overall land value of $4.50 per square foot. And then on page 32, he goes into his detailed cost analysis for replacement cost new. And then the preceding pages talk about any physical depreciation or obsolescence attributed to the property. And then his overall concluded value via the cost approach is $5,542,000, and then rounded to $5.5 million. And then for the sales comparison, he utilized 5 sales. Again, one being the former Yonkers sale, located at the same mall. and then four others located in similar markets throughout the state of Wisconsin. And then he goes into his income approach, and he utilized 5 lease comparables throughout the state of Wisconsin, one of them being in the city of Eau Claire with a original lease date of 2012. So that was an older lease that he had to utilize in the local market. So then he just talks about his estimate of expenses, and then how he concluded his capitalization rate on page 59. And then he concludes his value via the income approach on page 61. And then on page 62, he reconciles his values to conclude his overall opinion of value of $5.5 million.
What page was that on? Reconcile that.
I'm sorry, 62. I'm sorry, I'm a fast talker. So if you guys need anything,
But we appreciate that.
Well, typically we only get 5 minutes. So this is,
Wow. We'll have to do that. Any additional information that you would like to present for the board to consider?
no, sir.
Okay. I have a handful of questions.
Absolutely.
You didn't, somebody else compiled this?
Yes, I'm sorry. This is an independent third-party appraisal done by RBG Commercial, mainly Pete Helen. He's based out of Illinois.
Okay, of the sales comparables, how many of those comparables are vacant?
Let's see. The Yonkers was vacant.
Maybe I can even make it easier. How many of the sales comparables are not vacant?
I believe one of them.
So all but one of the sales comparables used in this are vacant?
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned that the sales comparables are in similar markets.
Yes.
Do you think they're similar properties?
I have not done any detailed inspections of the comparable properties myself. Based on my review of the appraisal, I'd say, they're rough around the same size. He did bracket the age, he bracketed the square footage, so I'd say most of these were yes.
What about locations? Do you think they're similar locations?
I'm not as familiar with Wisconsin as he is, so I'll defer to
Okay.
his
I
expertise.
mean, because I looked through here and like, for example, sale number 2, the Shop Go. There's nothing near that. There's a gas station and I believe a bank or credit union, and then there's no commercial space anywhere else, anywhere near it, no
Okay.
residential near it. I believe, and the assessor may be able to shed some light on it, it's now being used for self-storage units?
That's correct.
Okay, and that is correct?
Yeah, that's actually these, which we've seen across the region and really the country, that a lot of these big box stores, that's what they're being turned into.
Are there a lot in the Eau Claire area?
That I don't know.
Okay. Anywhere else in Wisconsin? I mean, it seems to me that's pretty unusual.
Not that I've seen. I mean, I can, speaking regionally, I'm not as specific to Wisconsin. I was handed this last week.
Sure, and
the two people that have been discussing this with the assessor had prior engagements.
right.
So, based on what I've seen regionally in Minnesota, Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan, we have seen those turned into self-storage a fair amount.
What's the comparison for the price per square foot for a self-storage unit versus a high-end commercial space?
That I can tell you when self-storage units are selling, you're buying the income. So it's kind of hard to decipher it, arm's length transaction, fee simple estate.
Just, I guess, picking up on that, have you seen any big boxes attached in a mall environment turned into self-storage units?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
That Sears number 3, that's just a standalone Sears store, correct?
It looks like it's got an inline tenant with the Office Depot, but yeah.
Does it have an inline tenant? Or do you?
Well, based on-
I see the picture.
Right. I don't know. Again, I'll defer. I mean, based on the photo, it has a attached tenant, but
What kind of difference in pricing or value would a standalone versus a mall anchor property?
well, I mean, it would again depend on the conditions of the property. I think being attached to a mall, it would sell for less on a per square foot basis, based on what we've seen at this particular mall, that 3 of the 5 anchors have left.
You think it's worth, a commercial property attached to a mall is worth less than a commercial property standing alone?
A big box, yes. In my opinion.
I have other questions too, but I don't want to monopolize all the time if others have. Let's talk a little bit about
Anyone else
the,
want to jump in? so-
okay, let's talk a little bit about the income approach
Okay.
that was undertaken. How did you, or how did whoever prepared this report reach the estimate of, that income estimate?
Well, again, he surveyed this, he had to survey the whole state for rental rates.
I guess the question I'm asking, did he get the actual lease for this property?
Yes, he does have the actual lease for the property.
And he used it in this?
He did not. It was not considered because it was originally signed in 2001.
Okay. He didn't consider the actual lease of this property
He did
in
not.
determining? Okay. That's all I have for questions right now.
Okay, very good. Thank you, City Attorney. Any other board members have questions? Seeing none, City Assessor, do you have questions of the objector? I don't see any. Very good. Thank you. City Assessor?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony which you shall give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Alyssa Schultz. I am doing the commercial properties for the city of Eau Claire. I printed you all off a packet. You two mind sharing? I will be presenting the Shields information, and I will put them all. I think I did one. Was there enough? Thank you. Okay, so, the big box market is definitely a difficult task to value. And that would be one of the reasons why, we have so many properties in litigation that were waived. There are sales of underperforming stores, due to location, brand, and there are also sales that have replaced their brand with modern, superior type stores. One exception to this is if the property is leased. And finding a property of a big box store that's leased is difficult too, because a lot of times they own their own store. They don't buy it and then lease it out. So a couple of things I'd like to address first would be the appraisal, because I did have a chance to review it also. Sale one in their comparable sales approach, correct, was our Yonkers. But it was also a bankruptcy sale. So with this in mind, this would not be an arm's length sale. So the cost per square foot would be relatively low.
Ms. Schultz, do you want to put that in the record?
You bet. Sale two, let's see here, was also a former Shopko in Madison. I had done some research on this. This property has been vacant since 2014. Like the city attorney had mentioned, it is near an Oscar Mayer plant. It's not in a retail district such as such as Shields is in our area. And it was converted into self-storage units. Sale 3 is of a former Sears in Green Bay. It's not attached to a mall. It's actually near more stores where they would be discount big box retailers, Big Lots, that sort of area, not in a regional mall. I was born in Green Bay, and in my opinion, this Sears has probably been underperforming since the early 1980s. And I believe that would be one of the reasons why it sold at such a small square foot. Sale number 4 was of a vacant Kmart in Menominee. Now, if any of you have ever driven over in that way, you would know Menominee is not comparable to Eau Claire, and it definitely does not have a regional mall, such as we have here. Sale 5 was of a former Menards store in Madison, Wisconsin. This one I would like to point out just because I think it's interesting. I'll pass this around. This is how Menards sells their properties. They put a restrictive deed on them. And right there, that I have it highlighted, you can pass it around. It tells all the types of stores that cannot purchase this property. So there's over 35 different stores, Ace Hardware, Lowe's, Home Depot. None of those stores can purchase a Menards store because it has a restrictive deed on it for 20 years. So I wouldn't consider that an arm's length sale either.
Are there any kind of restrictive deeds on the subject property?
No. I'll give you a minute to look through that. You know, when a restrictive deed is put into place, that basically limits its highest and best use. Now, in the state of Wisconsin, we have to value all properties as their a productive property and at its highest and best use. So when you put something like that on the sale, that's basically taking its highest best use and pulling it away from it because it's not allowing it to produce what it should be. And the last sale in the appraisal was of an Appleton grocery store. It was a pick and save. This was the only non-vacant sale in this entire appraisal. This did sell for $82 a square foot, but the appraiser reduced the cost per square foot by 40% because they saw it as a leased fee investment. Now, they also indicated that it's not comparable to the Shields property, and that's why they reduced the value by 40%. Now, I'm bringing this up because this comparable sale had a lease in place for $9.81 of this pick and save because it's not comparable. Our Shields store has a lease in place currently at $14.37. So correct, they are not comparable, but that is not a reason to reduce the cost. That would be a reason to inflate the cost. You don't reduce 40% off of a cost per square foot when the lease amount is less than the subject property. So you can see this appraisal was written for vacant store use. What we call this in Wisconsin is considered the dark store theory. And it is, none of these were thriving mall anchor stores such as our Shields. Secondly, I have major concerns with the overall income approach that the appraiser used because from what I read, the appraiser did not get the income from Shields. And I had spoke to the appraiser and he said it was not obtained, and it does state that in the appraisal that they did never receive any income. So now I'd like to address how I valued the Shields. Shields operates in a destination mall. There isn't any other regional mall within 80 miles of where ours is here in Eau Claire. It first opened its doors here in 1995, and then in 2001, they expanded from 50,000 square feet. So they purchased this property at 50,232 square feet and increased the size of it to over 80,000 square feet. And then They also added a basement at that portion too, because they felt that that was necessary for that location. Then in 2014, they did another expansion where they remodeled much of the store and then also acquired inline mall stores so that they could make their total square foot even larger than it was to begin with for their prior expansion. So this took their overall square foot to over 107,000 square feet. So they compete in an outdoor enthusiast market. In most markets, their competitors are Dick's Sporting Goods, Dunham's, Gander Mountain, Gander Outdoors, Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops. Here in Eau Claire, my personal opinion, the two competitors that they have would be Walmart and Gander Mountain. And neither of those two stores, if you've ever been to either of them, house nowhere near the amount of sporting goods that Shields does. In 2018, Shields did come to our board of review where their value was at $7,442,000. Upon that day, our board of review, we decided to negotiate in a good faith effort to keep their value more equitable with other big box store values here in Eau Claire. We negotiated that value down to $7,174,000. So last year, we decreased their assessed value $268,000. I'd like to point out that there is no evidence to indicate that there is an insufficient demand for Shields in Eau Claire. I would also like to point out that there is no information that this store is an underperforming store either. In fact, I mean, I personally shop there. If you take a drive past at any point in time during the week, on the weekend, you can't even find a parking spot in that area. So, I would like to draw your attention to, here's a picture of the store. Secondly, is the layout of the store. On page 3 is some sales in the area that I found, just to kind of give you an idea of where sales of big box stores with a lease sell and sales with big box stores and no lease sell. So this gray box area up on the top, these are all single occupancy big box stores. In that gray box, you'll see bracketed anywhere between $12.40 a square foot to $34.88 a square foot. Those are sales of properties in Wisconsin that have sold with no lease in place. If you look in the green box, these are sales that I found that are also single occupancy big box stores that have sold with a lease in place. Now, when you look at those, they go from $41 a square foot all the way up to $234 a square foot. So this gives you an idea of what an investor is willing to pay for a property that has a lease in place, which has an indication on their value versus where there isn't one, which is how this appraisal was kind of arrived. The next page would be page 4. I'd like to point out, this is printed right from our Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual on commercial valuation for retail stores. I'll read it to you so everyone back here can hear it. But what it says is, regardless of the approach used, the assessor should be careful to avoid using comparable sales involving properties that are vacant, in transition, or suffering from some form of distress, unless the subject property is similarly vacant, which ours is not. Rather than valuing stabilized operating retail properties, the assessor should choose comparable sales that exhibit a similar highest and best use and similar placement in the retail marketplace. So that's how I valued this property. If you turn to the next page, this is my comparable sales grid. I used 2 sales in Eau Claire here because I think that would be the best indicator of market value. The first one was a Festival Foods in Eau Claire. Now this is a grocery store, so it has one of the highest total adjustment factors on the bottom, because when we value properties that aren't exactly similar, our Marshall and Swift cost valuation shows that there would be about a 25% difference in value versus a retail store from a grocery store. So I made the adjustments accordingly for that. The next sale that I used was a Gander Outdoors that just happened a couple months ago. And this one sold for $5,794,100. The next sale that I had used was a Shopko in La Crosse. This one sold in 2018 for $5,617,500. There was a Shopko in Rice Lake, sold for $6,378,560. There was a Kohl's in Neenah, Wisconsin, that sold for $10 million. There was Dunham's Hobby Lobby, so they are in a conjoined space, sold for $13,714,807. And then there was a Walmart in Milwaukee that sold for $10,810,000. Now, with all my adjustments in place based on the criteria below, my average cost per square foot should be $72.38, which would bring the overall value after it's ratioed based on our 2019 ratio to $7,692,100. If you turn to the next page, page 6, this is also out of our Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual on commercial valuation for the income approach. It says, when comparable sales are not available, the income approach is usually the best method for estimating the value of a commercial property. The income approach may frequently be the most reliable method for estimating the value of a commercial property because it represents the way investors think and when they buy and sell income properties in our market. Because the income approach generates a value based on the income, generating potential of a property is particularly reflective of the way it values buyers in place on properties that are used for rental purposes. Value in this form can be defined as the present worth of anticipated future benefits. While this is true of all approaches, this definition is particularly useful because in applying the income approach is the process of converting anticipated future benefits into an income or estimate of a present value's worth. So if you turn to page 7, this is my income approach. This is also based off of the income that was submitted to us in 2018 for a revaluation. I have the exact lease from Shields, so I used that in a modified form in order to make the income approach work for Shields here. I'm going to state the Wisconsin statute 70.03. It says, assessable real property in Wisconsin includes not only the land itself, but all buildings and improvements thereon, and all fixtures, rights, and privileges are pertaining thereto. So just as the transferable value of a farm would transfer crops into in a sale, the value from that would also be transferred in this sort of situation. So how I used the income approach here for Shields. Let me see. So in their potential gross income, the potential gross income for 2019 in Shields is $1.4 million, is what their lease says. I modified that because the appraiser is saying that these large big box stores are too large and you can't sell them. Now, although I have some concern with that, because Shields chose to expand their store that large. They didn't purchase a store that large, they made it that big. I still took it into consideration because I feel that it is more difficult to sell a much larger store. So what I did is I brought the potential gross income down to $960,000. What that is a prorated value based on if it was an 80,000 square foot footprint of a building instead of the 107,000, so that we could account for the building's inadequacies being too large. And then I took the vacancy and collection loss that actually was reported to us from Shields and came up with the effective gross income of $912,000. Then I stabilized their expenses before property tax deduction based on the information that they also submitted to us, and gave us a net overall income of $838,722. I used a higher cap rate than the appraiser used, which if any of you are unfamiliar with cap rates, the higher the cap rate you use, the lesser the value you're going to get. So I used a higher cap rate than what the appraiser used. I used what is called a loaded cap rate when you load it with the effective tax rate here in Eau Claire. It was a loaded cap rate of 10.97, where the appraiser had used, let me just see here.
10.45.
10.45, correct, yep. Which brings an overall indicated value, again, to $7,646,000, or $71.23 a square foot. The other thing is using that high of a cap rate, I chose to use that because they're coming to the end of their lease. So they only have a few more years left on their lease. Now, with knowing that information, I still don't think Shields is probably going to pick up and move their store to anywhere else. They're centrally located in an area that they chose to expand and modify their store to meet their needs where they're at right now. And then my last approach that I ran was a cost approach. And this approach usually comes in higher for big box stores because it costs more for them to build than they'll reap the value of it. But it's still a good indicator of whether a big box store should buy or build a store here in Eau Claire. So if you just look at the top box on page 8, these are the total permits that Shields took in the past, since 2001. The total amount of the permits comes to $3,447,879. That's just what they took. That didn't account for any land value. That didn't account for that 50,000 square foot footprint that they also bought. So in my lower box, you'll see I took an average size store that was a big box store that would be attached to a mall, so a mall anchor. And I made adjustments based on the depreciation of the building and came up with an overall value. Like I said, it's going to be high, $11 million. But taking that into consideration, when I had also reviewed the appraisal's cost approach, the appraiser didn't take into consideration that over about $3.9 million actually of the remodel that Shields had done was done in 2013. They used more depreciation because they had seen the building being much older than what it actually is. So to reconcile all of my three approaches, I think the value where we have Shields at $7.174 million, all of my approaches indicate a much higher value, even at 7.6. So I think it would be very equitable with all the other big box stores with what's going on in the market right now. So that's all I have.
Board members have questions of the assessor? I do. Board Member Worthman?
Thanks, and thank you for the presentation. Just wanted to ask a question on this improved sales comparison grid, number 5.
Yep.
I thought you had said the total adjusted factor was 25% for a supermarket, but I see, am I understanding that I see a 35% total adjusted factor on the bottom here?
Yep, that's for Kohl's though, so that's not a supermarket.
No, this one's on Festival.
Oh, yes, okay, so yes, 25% is what it would be a difference in building it from our Marshall and Swift, but then I had also other adjustments based on the square foot area, the year built, and the construction type, so
You added an extra adjustment.
that added extra on top of the 25%.
Okay, can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
So you had said on this cost approach,
Yep.
I'm trying to understand the argument that, when you talked about that this is, you granted that this was larger than most sporting or most comparable sporting goods stores or retail stores would be looking for, and so you adjusted down, I think it was to 85%. Help me understand how you come to that. So it's like you recognize that the store may be too large for a sale, but what actually happens in that marketplace? Like the store is already the size that it's gonna be.
Yep.
You have to buy it at that size. So I wonder if, I'm sort of playing devil's advocate here, but I'm wondering if that's a situation of, we either go or we don't. So if you're, to me, that could really impact whether or not, if Shields were to not renew their lease, that we would have, it would have trouble filling up. So I was trying to understand how you calculated that reality.
Sure. So what I did is, if you look at this improved sales comparison grid, most of these stores, if you look down where it says the square
Which
foot.
page is that?
Page 5. So if you look in the square foot area.
Yeah.
So the majority of those sales, if you look across at the square foot area, they're around 85,000, some are around 90,000. So those stores are the stores that I had used that sold. So taking into consideration that Shields has 107,000 square feet. Now, technically, if I subtract out what the appraiser did, would be their basement cost and their mezzanine, which they had said doesn't have an effect on the value, then their overall square foot would be down near 97,000 square feet. But to take that into consideration, it's still higher than where some of these stores have sold at their square foot area. So what I did is I reduced their potential income. Instead of using 107,000 square foot footprint, I reduced it to a 80,000 square foot footprint to reduce their value to where I feel that they could actually sell that. Now, if someone was going to buy Shields as a potential buyer, they could do a lot of things. Shields acquired stores that were inline stores in the mall. They could convert those back to sales or stores that could be back more in line where all this the mall lies. You know, there's other stores that have sold across Wisconsin where they've taken a large square foot and reduced it to multi-tenant spaces. So there's other options, but I'd still like to draw your attention back to, we can't look at a hypothetical use. We have to value it how it stands as of January 1, because we don't have any information that Shields is underperforming, and they would even go that route.
That helps, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Seeing none, questions from the objector?
More rebuttals than questions.
Okay, let's save those then
Okay.
for your summary.
The only question I had, did you use any depreciation for your costs?
Yeah.
So that $11 million is with depreciation?
Correct, yep. So the depreciation that I used was slightly different than the appraiser. I think the appraiser used 60%. I used about 47%. Because when the appraiser took the depreciation into consideration, they used an effective age, and depreciation is merely an opinion, but they used the effective age being much older, where I saw that Shields had most of its additions and remodels done in 2014, so we had a difference in effective age.
Okay. So what was your replacement cost new before depreciation?
The replacement cost before depreciation, well, it would have been whatever, 4.5, almost 4.6 million with an added 47% on top of it would be, so. I didn't calculate after or before. Yeah. I take the depreciation off as I go. I
Right,
don't
okay.
take it off at the end.
Got it. Okay.
Any further
That's
questions?
the questions I have.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Objector, if you want to, I guess, summarize your arguments in this case?
So the assessor had stated that the appraiser hadn't reviewed the lease. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was provided after the appraisal was done, correct? The emails I've seen between you and my coworkers that the appraiser did look at the lease after the fact, and then that's when he concluded that it would be given no weight.
Not that I'm aware of. What I had is that Shields had said no, that the lease was not provided to the appraiser.
Right now, I'm talking from the appraiser's standpoint. The emails that I've seen between, I believe, yourself and my coworkers say that they forwarded on the lease to the appraiser, and then the appraiser's answers back to you.
Yes, they did. Yep, I
Okay.
did speak with the appraiser, but he did, as far as I'm aware, he didn't actually see the income approach, that Shields said that they, for some reason or another, didn't provide it to them when the appraisal was done.
Right, yeah, right, correct. My point is that the lease was provided eventually. It was an oversight on our error that it wasn't provided before the appraisal was done, and then I believe you had brought it to I think you spoke with Josh and
I
Stephanie.
just want to make sure we have this in the record properly. Do you have direct knowledge that the lease was provided?
To the appraiser, yes, I do.
How so?
I have an email.
That you were part of?
That was forwarded on to me last week when I became a part of this.
So
I can find it and send it to you to submit as part of the record.
But as I understand what you're saying, though, is that the lease was not provided to the appraiser when the appraiser prepared the appraisal. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so it was provided after the fact.
After Alyssa brought it to our attention.
Okay.
So I just want to make it known that we're not hiding the lease, knowing that that the lease rate is higher than what the lease rate the appraiser concluded in his appraisal. And again, he didn't give it weight because it was signed in 2001.
Okay.
So it's got escalators in there that are based on 2001
Okay.
lease terms. So that's, I just want to make sure that we're not hiding anything. She brought up the bankruptcy sale for the Yonkers. From what I could tell, and from what the appraiser had said in his appraisal, it was marketed for sale. So even though it's a bankruptcy sale, it's it's on the open market for any and all active bidders. So it was exposed to the open market. So that's why he had concluded it was a arm's length transaction, and I would agree with that opinion.
Do you mind if I ask some more questions, Mr. Winzen?
I think we're really asking the objector to summarize at this point, so if you would, again, just go through and summarize.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then the assessor provided you a grid of between lease fee transactions and fee simple transactions. Of course, lease fee transactions are going to be higher. The investor is buying the income. Yes, they're also buying the underlying real estate, but what they're really after is the income of the property. So, of course, those per square foot sales prices are going to be higher. And what the appraiser did in this appraisal, he included a lease fee sale, but then he deducted because of the rental rate. because it was a lease fee transaction. So that's what he was showing, is that there is a difference between a lease fee sale and fee simple sale. And then in terms of the equitability of this subject to the other big boxes in the mall, this one is on at roughly $67 a square foot. The range of the other 4 big boxes are $47.82 a square foot to $60.13 a square foot. We are asking $51 a square foot. So we're not asking to be the lowest assessed on a per square foot basis, but it would bring it within the range of the current assessments.
Very good. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. City Assessor, would you like to summarize, or are you good?
I think we're
Okay, very good. Okay, with that, we'll close testimony in the case of Oakwood Hills Mall Shields, parcel number 15-3507-C, 4710 Gulf Road. The assessor has a value on this particular property of $7.174 million. The objector has indicated an opinion of value of $5.5 million. Looking for a motion, and then we can have some discussion.
Based upon evidence presented, I move that we uphold the assessor's valuation.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to uphold the city assessor's valuation of $7.174 million. Discussion. Member Peters? Sure.
Would you like would you like supporting rationale to be part of the motion?
Yes.
Then I'd offer a friendly amendment to Mr. Klinkhammer's motion that that we're upholding the assessor's value because of the comparable sales comparison, which was based upon operating retail stores, as well as the income approach, the cost appraisal, and that there was a negotiated value last year that is the same of $7,174,000, and that's staying flat for this year, even though the retail market, as was demonstrated earlier in today's proceedings, is actually stronger in 2018, or in 2018, as well as any other supporting evidence that was presented by the city assessor.
You accept that as friendly?
Yes.
Could you please restate it for us?
It's on tape.
Is that okay with the second?
Yes.
Very good. Oh, you would, okay. Very good. We have a motion that has been amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk?
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Lohr,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Winzenz,
Aye.
Riepel, aye, Bergy,
Aye.
Christofferson.
Aye.
So the assessor's value of $7.174 million is upheld. City Clerk, are there any further cases?
Not that notices were filed for.
And it is it after 10 o'clock?
No, we got about 15 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, we need to remain in session until 10 o'clock because objectors have the first 2 hours of the Board of Review to file appeals if they're able to show extraordinary circumstances why those appeals were not received 24 hours ahead of time.
Well, is this considered a recess, or we're just staying in?
We're staying in session, but if
Are we able to
you
leave
may
the
want-
room as long as we're easily and quickly able to be
Yes.
recalled?
You may wander.
All right.
So I have a question,
Yes.
just for my information. On all of these requests, the objections that are being litigated, who's litigating on behalf of the city, just the city attorney, Mr. Nick?
Yeah, the city attorney's office handles the litigation, although we do contract with the outside firm to assist us in those matters, and then, we end up hiring oftentimes an appraiser to do an appraisal on our behalf as well. But those are not cheap.
Yes. Well, I just want to make sure there's a complete record as possible. I was going to ask him to do the bankruptcy sale. I mean, it's not a transaction, but it's a signal of distress.
Right, it's not in good standing.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to have a much more motivated buyer than you would. I can actually, when I was going to ask, that's the question I was going to ask, I wanted to give him an opportunity to at least address that. You know, we have a case that says you shouldn't use distressed properties. Why is this okay? It's actually kind of going to give him an opportunity to kind of answer. It's a challenge with how we do things. We have, we allow him to have that summary type, that's why I asked him. It's like, here he goes, assessor goes. But then you kind of want an opportunity to ask the follow-up questions.
Would that help further litigation if you were able?
Marshall. But I
Yeah, it's your
get it
job.
out and we'll have it on record if there's the potential to use it. I don't know. I mean, these trials, there's kind of battles of experts.
Yeah.
Oh, we totally had one. Mayfair Mall. I think over a month of the trial, it was all about the law.
It's not. I did feel like this was a little out of my scope, to be honest. Dark story. It's big.
The difference between lease and this is a lease.
Well, I just think you want, if you're going to use an income approach, you want to be able to consider. Use it, don't use it, but if you didn't have it, consider it. It's not an appraisal.
In a bankruptcy sale, basically, you're trying to get rid of it as fast as you can.
Exactly.
That's why I
Like,
went this
you
direction.
can't, it's on the market at a low rate because you're trying to get out.
You
get
have
out
to
of
sell
it.
it.
You don't have like a year to wait around to see if you get.
You know what,
that
I
stuff.
didn't get a good offer, we're gonna sit for another.
Wonder what those people are thinking about those shopping stores.
But having grown up in the Madison area, I was always surprised that Shopko store stayed open as long as it did, because it's near nothing. Nothing. I mean, there's a residential neighborhood across like a 4-lane thoroughfare that's walled off.
Where is that?
It's near the Oscar Mayer.
In
Plant
On the south side?
Kind of the near,
Southeast side.
near east side, yeah.
Kind of, here's the airport, here's Oscar Mayer, and it's right here, and there's like a golf course on this side, and there's just, I mean, there's nothing. Nothing. It's, I mean, it's nothing in a good way. Yeah. And our one, the Eau Claire one, the high V's. No? They're pulling.
I don't think so.
That was only, it was a month ago or something.
I think that may have fallen through.
Oh. Well, the high V's been reported, but the falling through has not, so.
Throwing cookies around.
Kind of easy going right now.
5 second rule.
I don't think I kept anything.
I don't think so either.
You had a copy of this?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure I was gonna make one.
Well, now you can walk on.
I was asked to play at 10:30. Now they filled the tea time. I'm on my own now.
the sacrifices of public service, you
I
know?
It's terrible, miserable.
I feel sorry for him. I met with Milwaukee
Well,
councilman
most of
last
it,
Friday about flooding
Mr.
issues.
Klinken
Former
said that
councilman.
most of his first objectors
He had served for
were.
12.
And of course,
So why did you resign?
the shields
To
were
them come back, it's just crazy.
Mhm.
They're full time, but it's full time and then
outdoor sports.
3 nights or 4 nights a week.
Well,
meetings.
IT, but it's
So-
a big, you know,
Musicians and
council.
Plus for, they're like
Mhm.
their office, but they're, it's just amazing.
I don't think it's down regular, but
I
obviously,
could have even the smallest communities that I represent.
The,
Yeah.
It is a huge
Yeah.
sacrifice from, you know,
spread
in the
it
late
right
nineties,
the
you
other
know,
direction on there.
with meetings.
It's gonna be interesting to see.
You know, if you're gonna be thorough and prepared,
Yeah.
you know,
I
going into
I thought that they had heard
there,
it,
you know,
but
there's
maybe I'm wrong.
all kinds of different topics that are covered that no one
Personally, I
expert
don't-
in everything. There's at least one minimum one.
I don't think that that's a valid
That
argument.
takes some time. Yeah, just reading through every Friday, it's just like, okay, there's so much information, it's like really needed information. Okay?
You're an environmental consultant.
And I work for nonprofit. Advocacy, so I work on national parks. Trying to get partners to do dedicated funding for nonprofits.
So where do you usually go? Where do you typically
Go
go?
by Curtis and Bill.
Sorry.
My wife and I members of the country.
My employer is to, like, basically, like, as soon as I get out of the I'm usually meeting for a mayor from
Bigger
Indianapolis,
problem
Missouri,
than I am.
flying in to talk to their members of Congress.
I don't believe it.
On Wednesday. So like, my work is kind of like on the ground advocacy.
It's true.
Do some lobbying, but it's really not.
Well, part of the reason I ask,
So is your wife the one
I
that
work with the
really,
youth in my
is like a
church,
guest
so we have
every
people
year?
come in periodically and talk about their careers and ask them what kind of things interest them.
That's,
Somebody, one of the kids said, they think somebody talked about environmental engineering. I don't know precisely what they meant. None of them have ever said lawyer, which I just assume means they just don't, they get enough.
They already know.
They've already they hear enough from me and they don't wanna hear, you know, we've had engineers come in and doctors, you know, in addition to other, you know, they play ultimate frisbee.
There was another piece in
We
there.
try to
that
kind of
I
mix
must
the
have eaten.
dessert and the vegetables. That was something they mentioned, I'm like, I know somebody who, whether or not felt like you fit that profile, you probably know somebody that.
Yeah, I do know some, I mean, I don't back that profile, but I think I do know someone around here in Eau Claire. She was
The chemical engineer that came in was the one they liked the most, and that was the one like engineers, you know, they're worse than lawyers, and forget about her.
Yeah.
Yeah, the woman that I know is actually, that was, Army Corps, and the projects they work on are incredible.
In the year,
She's out west.
Okay.
But she's like,
She had contact here though?
she's from Green Bay.
In the professional.
Maybe I'll shoot you an email. Maybe I'll shoot you an email.
Or now.
Oh, that'd be
That's the case, that's what stuff is gonna be done. Just,
And that
okay.
too. They just, you know, and
It is interesting, really interesting. If they do like the landfill, like maybe sure that everything is right, and she did it. They converted an old landfill, it's into a. So her work with, I mean, everything.
Many of these,
Out west, there's a lot of taking out dams, and the river's gonna run through. And you reconstruct like rivers back.
But also just how you design cities to be more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, it's all,
make their presentations
I think she was doing specific.
obscure and complicated.
Ned would be the first.
I'll talk to Ned. That's a good
They
idea.
start referring to
I don't
pages,
think kids would want to hear it.
but they don't.
I mean, maybe they would.
It's hard to predict. They're really smart.
And
No,
That's a good, I don't think that has come up. But again,
we could diagnose people, we could diagnose you. You sit there.
oh, they would love that. They like busting my chops almost as much as my own kids do.
They like you.
I think, that's my feeling, you know. One of them, there's one kid in particular who
Just fix the dark
just loves to talk and pop. And every time he does, he just busts out laughing. He thinks it's the funniest thing. Yeah, they got, I mean, a bunch of them, you know,
Last year,
a couple of kids, their father's a neurosurgeon. Super bright kids.
We're also using that value to establish an axis, but then.
Probably supposed to be nuclear engineering or something, one of them said.
You know, commercial appraisal.
I'll mention that next time we talk and see if there's any. I have subtly kind of, you know, the law, you know, anybody, and it's crickets chirping. There's no way.
The difference is
Yeah, I remember. I'm getting my mom 60 ago.
A couple of them have said they'd like to go see what's been recorded or but they have no interest in having, or anybody give a presentation on the laws.
I think it's interesting.
I think it's super interesting, but.
And it's so big that you can do so much more.
Tax reps that are.
Right, depending on the kind of area you go
He was the big box.
It's a really good. Same thing.
I will mention, you know, and we offer, you know, having you do some sort of assessment of the substance of the problem.
Tax rep, and they get half the savings. So
They're probably all in then.
Oh, they would.
Yeah.
Okay, it appears to be 10:01 at the moment. City Clerk, have you received any additional filings? No additional filings, so, since we have concluded the appeals that have been presented in a timely manner, and there are no additional late filings, a motion to adjourn would be appropriate.
So moved.
How do you say it?
Yeah, adjourn, sign a day.
There you go.
What he said.
Okay.
We got a motion?
To adjourn?
Sign a day.
Sign a date.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Never
Your
heard of
attention.
it.
Really do
Sign
appreciate
a
it.
date.